Good morning and welcome to Reading the Gospels Together for Tuesday, June the 2nd, and today we're reading Luke chapter 10. Now last year the Sunday school kids sang a song naming the 12 disciples, and lots of people were impressed, saying that as adults they'd have a hard time naming all 12. Well, here's the challenge for the Sunday school this year. How about a song naming 72 more? Now, once again, as when Luke told us about the women who accompanied Jesus and the disciples, the common picture of Jesus and the 12 has to be adjusted in our minds. By this point of his ministry, despite Jesus' stringent warnings regarding the costs of discipleship, which we read about in the last chapter, there are nevertheless 72 committed disciples. They were to serve as the advance guard, we are told, preparing towns and villages for Jesus' arrival. Now, it's possible that these are a separate group altogether from the 12, 72 plus 12 then, who have received identical instructions as the apostles got in the previous chapter. Now, why is there 72? Why that specific number? Well, that number probably symbolically represents all the nations of the world. You see, there are 72 names listed in the table of nations in the text of Genesis chapter 10. You can go back and read that and read those names. Now, elsewhere, Jesus tells the disciples and us to go into all the world and preach the gospel. Maybe this is a foretaste of that plan. 72 disciples, 72 countries in the world. We'll see. Now, they're instructed to travel in pairs, perhaps for security, but perhaps also because the Old Testament instructs that 2 witnesses are necessary to provide valid testimony in court. And so you need 2 disciples going into a village telling the good news about Jesus the Messiah to be believed. There's all kinds of instructions that they get. There's an interesting little detail hidden in those instructions. In the old King James, the passage says not to bring a purse. Well, that means not to bring a bag of money. In the earlier instructions to the apostles, in the Gospel of Matthew, we read, "Take no gold, silver, or copper in your belts." In contrast, Mark writes, "Take no money," copper is the word that's used in Mark for money, "in your belts." Luke has silver. Don't take any silver with you. Now, the socioeconomic range of all 3 audiences is revealed in these differences. Mark's people were way too poor to worry about carrying gold or silver. Matthew has all 3 because he has that wider economic environment. Luke's for the middle class. Luke's a gospel for the silver carriers. A bit of an insight into Luke's audience. Now, despite the best efforts of the 72 and the 12, and Jesus himself, there were nevertheless many people who did not accept his message. Chorazin, Bethsaida, and Capernaum are all within a little small area on the very north part of the Sea of Galilee, marking the area of Jesus' ministry known as the Evangelical Triangle. Now, the Sea of Galilee is shaped a little bit like a hand, with the northern part up there, and Capernaum, Chorazin, and Bethsaida are up on the northern part. And the bulk of his 3 years of active ministry took place in Galilee, mostly in that upper part of the area of the Sea of Galilee. Now, despite this, Chorazin, Bethsaida, and Capernaum remained largely unconverted. Now, these 3 cities were in fact lost to the knowledge of the world for over 1,000 years. I have some very old Bible commentaries from the early 1800s, and they're presuming that these cities are mythical because there had been no evidence of them existing whatsoever. What happened to them? Well, the Jewish-Roman conflicts of 66 and 135 AD took their toll, as did the Muslim conquests in the 600s and 700s, as did a series of very serious earthquakes in the 300s and then finally in the 700s. Many people are surprised to think of Israel as an earthquake zone, but small tremors there happen with regularity. And these 3 cities were in the rift of it. They're adjacent to the Jordan River, which follows the Jordan Rift, and they straddle a significant zone of geologic activity. In fact, I visited a volcano park on the Golan Heights, just a short drive from the Sea of Galilee. Now, in fact, the primary building material in Jesus' day was the local stone. We think of houses being made of wood. Well, in Jesus' day, most of the homes were made of stone. In Jerusalem, Nazareth, Bethlehem, and other biblically significant sites, the local stone is kind of a warm-looking, honey-colored limestone. But in Capernaum, Chorazin, and Bethsaida, it's black volcanic basalt. In any case, as recently as the mid-1800s, most traces of these three cities were completely obscured. It wasn't until primarily Franciscan archaeologists started digging that the ancient cities came to be revealed once again. The digging continues to this day. The actual location of Bethsaida is still a hot topic of debate, with the latest issue of Biblical Archaeological Review presenting the best cases for the two main contenders. Jesus' words predicting the downfall of these cities, which large towns, really, population in Capernaum is probably a little over 5,000 and less in those other spots. Jesus' words predicting their downfall certainly came to pass. Now, the loss of these places comes as a warning to us. We have unprecedented access to scriptures, Bible studies, archaeological finds, biblical commentaries, encyclopedias, films, so much more. But like Capernaum, Chorazin, and Bethsaida, despite all these riches pointing us to the truth of the gospel, many people are slow to believe, if at all. What will become of us? Now, in contrast, Jesus says, "As for you who believe," and then he says, "rejoice that your names are written in heaven." Now, Jesus is here referring to the common image of a book in heaven that records the names of the righteous. The image is found throughout the Old Testament, the New Testament, and Jewish literature. The background is the common practice. For background, there's a friend of mine who was stranded outside of Canada when the border started to shut down due to COVID. Now, fortunately, he was one of the lucky ones for whom the Canadian government had scheduled a special evacuation flight. And he pre-registered along with a couple of hundred others and showed up at the airport at the scheduled time. And presenting his passport to the guard, he was shocked when the guard looked at the official list again and again, and he went down and down. He said, "I'm sorry, sir, you aren't on the list. I can't let you on the plane." Well, there was a few terrifying minutes of frantic pleading, and then the guard suddenly said, "Wait a minute, I didn't see that there are names on the back of the sheet. Here's your name right here. You can board." Now, my friend told me he didn't know whether to laugh or cry or kiss the guard. The main thing is his name was on the list. And that's nothing to the joy we have knowing our names are on the list in the kingdom of heaven, in that great book of life. Now, tomorrow, Luke chapter 11, where Jesus teaches us how to pray. And we'll see you then.